Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And I'm glad that we have enough heads in the room to talk about a much talked topic, affordable housing, taking stock. I don't know how many minutes do we have, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or half an hour? Like how many? Half an hour? Oh, thank you. Sorry, so we'll keep you between your lunch and a boring or maybe an interesting topic called affordable housing for the next 30 minutes. And it's an absolute joy and pleasure and privilege for me to welcome an extraordinary group of speakers, industry leaders, luminaries in their own field who have gathered today on this occasion to talk about affordable housing taking stock. It's been roughly 4 years since the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana was launched. And I think given that, it'll be 5 years next year, I think it's an apt time for us to take stock on what's really happening on the ground from people who actually move this subject forward every day. I am happy to introduce our panelists. We're starting with Vikram Goyal. He's the CEO of Quicker Realty Limited, an HDFC venture. He's one of the leading luminaries when it comes to affecting sales in the housing space. He's been with HDFC for over 17 years and brings extraordinary insight into the sales and real estate space. Joining him to his left is Shobit Agrawal. He's again a leader when it comes to real estate thought leadership, capital markets, and making deals happen on the ground where it matters the most. Thank you for joining. We're then joined by Mr. Anil Mehta. Anil Mehta is a 3.5 decade veteran of financial services, who's seen banking, who's seen insurance, and obviously today is the MD and CEO of India Shelter Finance Corporation. Thank you for joining us. To his left, we have Puneet Bhatia, who's the CEO Real Estate for Mirae Asset Management, a Korean conglomerate in asset management and investments, who brings global capital to support Indian real estate and has spent over 2 decades investing in real estate in India. We're then joined by Sandeep Menon. Sandeep Menon is the founder and CEO of Vastu Housing Finance, who's been also propagating affordable housing finance corporations for the last 4 or 5 years and has over 2 decades of financial services experience and understands real estate really, really well. And finally, we have Sharad Mittal. Sharad Mittal is the CEO real estate of Motilal Oswal Asset Management. He has a large book of investments in real estate and has been doing real estate investments again for almost 2 decades. Finally, to introduce myself, I'm Amit Goenka. I run a private equity fund for largely focusing on affordable housing. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here. And we'll get started right off the bat with Vikram. Sales, obviously, is the key thing. We've seen over-the-top decibels on how and what is selling, not selling, with increasing number of offers, all trying to claim that this is the cheapest home that you can buy and this is the right time to buy. So is affordable housing a function of marketing or is it a function of SOPs, and what is really working on the ground?
Thanks, Amit. Not only the cheapest, but also the best with golf facilities and swimming pools thrown in and stuff like that. No, jokes apart, I think we all know the importance. We all know the demand side of it. There are various numbers floating around. 20 million housing still required and stuff like that. But I think what is happening on the ground is that if you look at the entire ecosystem, starting from the developer to the marketers to the professionals, and it's very important to discuss, how many professionals do we have who really understand that space in terms of construction, in terms of putting the capital together, because a lot of these projects putting together is also a function of whether you're able to sort of manage your treasury in a way. And I think you can add value to that, I'm sure. And at each of these areas, people have to sort of figure out what is required really to put it together, because the margins are so thin. You don't necessarily have land available which is zoned down as affordable housing, and that is one of the largest sort of inventories which get into it, ingredients. As far as what's happening on the ground is that inquiries have been there in the last about 7-8 years of me working with the realty earlier with HDFC and now with Quicker. There are huge inquiries. Just to give you a number, and we're all in Bombay today, about 60% of the inquiry, whether it's on the home loan front or on the digital space on Quicker Realty, both are in the segment in Bombay under 40 lakh rupees. So which means every 2/3 or every 2 out of 3 people are inquiring for properties which are under about 40-50 lakh rupees of housing. I'm normally sort of referring to maybe 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms here. The question which it is, which we come to is that most of these housing projects which are coming in areas obviously which are outside the main sort of areas, and which is where challenges of infrastructure, social infrastructure, approachability, all those things can come up. So while there is a lot of inquiry, in terms of the conversions, the time taken has only been increasing, and the sentiment in the last 4 or 5 years have not sort of really helped. So there are two things at play. So on one hand, the availability of loan both to the developers as well as to the retailer is increasing, thanks to PMAY scheme and CLS. But at the same time, the sentiment on the other hand has been sort of becoming a little negative. So while the consumption has gone up, but the time taken for decision making has really, really grown. So there is multiple site visits which happen. Just to give you a thumb rule, earlier we would say if somebody has visited 3 or 4 times, there is surety the person would buy a property. Now, even if after 6 or 7 site visits somebody buys, we're very, very excited about it. So I think the time taken to make sure that, this is what they really want, this is really the cheapest, this is the golf course in this affordable luxury which I wanted to be in, people do take a lot of time, and but yes, decision making is becoming easier and faster because of the finance available to them. So that has helped.
Okay, so I would have liked you to maybe share some statistics in terms of conversion, volumes, growth, etc. But obviously we'll move on just to kind of very quickly introduce to those who are not entirely aware of the concept of affordable housing, whether houses are defined either by value, which is less than 25 lakhs, or by area terms, whether it is within metro locations, outside of metro locations. It is assumed that this is a $1 trillion opportunity. Given that we need about 20 crore homes potentially to be built and delivered for everybody in this country to effectively have a shelter on their head. So it's a very large opportunity, but corresponding to that, we've just seen very limited capital find its way into supporting affordable housing in the hands of private developers. Shobhit, why is that? It's a $1 trillion opportunity, 20 crore homes, but not enough capital. Everybody's looking for cheap capital and enough capital. What's going on?
Yeah, interesting question you ask. I think it's a bottomless sort of demand. So whether the number is 20 million and other places we have 25, I think what's not accurately predicted is whether these guys want to buy a home or not. My sense is, and I've been fortunate enough to talk, most of this demand, if you're talking about the sub 40 lakh rupees, right, is largely towards rental housing. Everybody that we know, people that want to buy this, whether it's your house help, your drivers, your, whoever is buying it, actually today is paying rent, right? So what we are saying is, listen, man, we'll make a house, you buy it. He doesn't have the capital to buy it. He probably doesn't want to buy it. He's here, may not want to live in Bombay all his life, right? So we are forcing a product. It's long distance travel for him, right? We are all thinking that he should go in Naina. I'm not sure whether he wants to go to Naina, right? So I think the model that we are all trying to solve is a buy-sell model. According to me, it should be largely build to lease, right? And rental housing. According to me, that's the focus. And if we focus and we prove this works, I think the capital is
So you're saying developers should move from build to own to build to rent?
Build to rent, and there you will find infinite pool of capital. What is happening is we are solving for build to sell. If you want build to sell, the equity returns are over 25%. Then you are saying, no, 25 I can't afford. I want to do it at 15. He's saying, I'm not giving you money at 15. I don't want to be at the 15% level. Then you say, no, the whole model is ineffective. Because we are solving the wrong way, according to me. So I want to just really say, look, you can't expect cheap capital, or you want social capital to come in and say, look, please be kind and give these, here's my money at 12%.
So what you're saying is that there are no returns in affordable housing and therefore there's not enough capital. Is that
That's right, because we are trying to solve for high returns in a product which you want to sell cheap. Both, in my view, is contradictory. You want high returns and you want to sell cheap.
Well, interestingly, we saw a very high-pitched campaign where apparently 5,000 homes got sold in a location called Ambivali in about a month. I don't know whether they bought for renting or they bought for they were investors. I have no clue. But we'll move on to Mr. Mehta and ask his views, because potentially a lot of people have come to him asking for money for affordable housing or cheap housing or EWS or LIG or any other categories defined under PMAY, CLSS schemes. So Mehta, what is your view? Is affordable housing really a subsidy-based scheme which is working for those who are not eligible to buy homes? Or is it really an objective that is allowing eligible buyers to actually buy their first home?
I think Shobit's comment was very, very insightful. All large cities have been built on rental housing. If you see all the the textile worker housing in Bombay, similarly in Calcutta, near Bara in Delhi. So all large cities across the world, even in Europe, were built on rental housing. It's attracting labor to come to larger cities to create the critical mass and to create housing for them. I think India has 400 plus, 100,000 plus population cities. Those cities will have to grow larger. A lot of housing demand is not going to happen because people want to own houses in the place they live in. It's going to happen because people will move to urban areas. The fundamental underlying thesis for all this rara and noise around affordable housing is more around urbanization than around natural growth. So a lot of housing will be needed in more urban centers. Instead of 64 cities with a million plus population, you'll probably in 20 years have 164 cities. And what the government is now trying to do, to my mind, is slightly misconceived because it does distort the market a bit. You're actually making housing affordable to people who cannot afford housing. Especially in the sub 15 lakh rupee segment in smaller cities, tier 2 and 3. Giving a subsidy which erodes all equity in the house makes for bad credit. What Ashwin just spoke about will happen in the retail financial sector if we have people owning houses with no equity in them. These loans are not going to be repaid. Till the time we keep growing, NPA numbers will look good. The day growth flattens or becomes more reasonable, I think this will all come back to bite us. So subsidies probably are not the way. There should be subsidies, but they should be cash flow based, not principal subsidies. That will not work in the long term. It has not worked in sector after sector. It's violating lending 101. You're lending with no equity. And I don't think that kind of lending ever works.
So, moving on to Puneet. Puneet, a lot of global interest was expected to come into affordable housing when the entire program was unveiled and what was looked at as $1 trillion opportunity, with global investors having an opportunity to participate in actually building the nation, building houses. We've seen several such programs run across various countries in the world, and some of them have done really well. Some maybe haven't. So as a global investor, what do you think about the sector and the space? And do you think this is a credible opportunity for global investors to step into?
See, the global investors actually find the affordable housing opportunity actually half full glass. So if you look at the 4 pillars of affordable housing, which is, I would put it FLAT, flat, which is, one is the financial part of it, which is, whether it is an interest subsidy, whether to the developer or to the customer, whether it is a land-related issue, which is a L, where, in spite of the 70 years of independence, we are still struggling to basically get the records digitized. The approvals become still a challenge, so we really do not have any single window clearances at, or a special treatment for affordable housing when it comes to approvals. And technology, I think we are somewhere there on the technology front, where we have moved ahead on that part, where execution is the key. So overall, from a global investor perspective, why the kind of quantum of capital which was expected to come in, while it is a great opportunity, but at the same point of time, when they look at and analyze that opportunity, they find those challenges, and therefore you have not seen the kind of quantum of capital which has come in. But where would the growth come in? I mean, if you look at the last year's numbers of China, for example, they had almost 1.6 billion square meters of units sold or absorption in the 2017. So for a growth, obviously, affordable housing is there, but I don't think we are as yet ready for that piece.
Thank you very much, Puneet. Moving on to Sandeep. Sandeep, you've looked at affordable housing from a consumer perspective, more from a credit or consumer credit offtake. Do you mirror the same sentiments, or do you think there's a, because we've seen HFCs actually get valued immensely. We've seen a lot of HFCs come to the market. Earlier, only banks were the standard source of going for a home loan. Any home loan buyer would traditionally go to a bank and ask for a home loan. Today, it is outside of banks. We've seen HFCs and NBFCs offer plethora of schemes to attract consumers and buyers, especially towards buying their first dream home, buying the sub 1 crore or even the small ticket homes. And those are faster disbursals, what I'm told. Do you agree with that, Sandeep? What is your view as an HFC?
Well, I guess, see, it's a multifold challenge. If you look at 32,000 crores have been given a subsidy, close to 40 lakh beneficiaries. And I think it's one of the few government schemes that have worked. Now the challenge is, are you mixing some part of welfare and trying to give homes to people whom they really cannot afford? Yes, there is a quantum of that segment. And that is the challenge for HFCs or banks or other institutions to figure out and do the credit right to make sure that you don't end up lending to a lot of people who have limited equity. Now, if you look at the housing opportunity in India, the housing opportunity is not just the top 4 to 5, 6 cities, which are the largest urban agglomerations. The real opportunity is in the next 20, the next 40, and the next 200 cities, where houses are built as self-construction. And a lot of people in middle India actually want to build their houses. Now, the understanding is to execute in a manner where real construction actually happens. And as someone just mentioned, whether we can build at a rapid pace a very large number. Can we build houses like, say, Brazil or Malaysia or a few other countries where the sheer pace at which it's built, like in China, is pretty commoditized, pretty standard, pretty modular. That doesn't happen in India. And you go down this value chain, you have developers who will have very minimal net worths, no great track records, not great construction, not following permissions, and then liquidity and financing becomes a big challenge, and there is no great equity in the business. But I would say that this is changing, and there are examples in quite a few states where there's been state government participation. Rajasthan is an example. Andhra Pradesh hopefully will be an example. And Gujarat's been an example, where a lot of stuff has been done. The opportunity on rental housing definitely is there in the big markets. But unfortunately in India, unlike say Europe, it's not really taken off for quite some time. So I think there needs a lot of government support for land to be given at low cost for rental housing to actually take off.
Thank you. I think I would concur with you a lot, Sandeep, because clearly I think when you're talking about 40 lakh beneficiaries, that's not a small number. And I do agree with the model of Rajasthan as being one of the shining examples where I think where PPP truly works. They've really made housing affordable. But how does that work for domestic investors and private equity funds, Sharad? We've seen only the big boys get money from you. When will the rural developers and the small boys get money from?
Thanks, Amit. I think there is no doubt that the opportunity is very large. Numbers being quoted between 20 to 30 million of urban housing shortage, 85% of is towards economic weaker sections. I'm only talking about urban's top 6 cities. I think what is still to be done is the concept needs to be proved. The affordable housing can sustainably generate the returns that the investor looking for. One problem is the margin. Second is the quality of developer. If you really see your grade A developer, even if I go to see B plus kinds also, have not really ventured out. This has been done largely by local developers at the outskirts of the city. I think capital right now would chase where the risk-adjusted return is higher. Where I feel mid-income housing, and the way we look at it is sub 4,000 rupees a square feet is affordable, low cost as you keep going lower in the price. 4 to 6,500 is mid-income, and above that is luxury or high-end. I think the sweet spot from an investor perspective, both in terms of volume and the margins, is between 4 and 6,500 rupees a square feet. The affordable housing is more of a volume, and if the investors will have to look at it, will have to look at more from a platform perspective. If there could be a value generation that can take equity valuation generation at an entity level. But from project to project, it still needs to be proved more. I think government needs to put in more effort, like I agree with Sandeep, there needs to be more effort to be put if they want to push for affordable housing. If I give you a simple example, between a mid-income housing, between say 4 to 6.5 and sub 4,000, the key differentiator in the cost is only the cost of construction. Rest, all costs are same. On the same piece of land, you can make an affordable housing or a mid-income. Your marketing, admin, approval cost, everything remains same. Wherein you would get significantly higher realization on a mid-income housing. So I think that's where the government needs to do some more bit. Maybe the state governments need to do some more bit to push for affordable housing.
Okay, that's excellent. So what we've heard is that there is an opportunity, but obviously there has been caution so far as global investors, domestic funds, or even housing finance companies are concerned. Coming back to you, Vikram, we've seen large-scale sales happen in some quarters where an entire township has been sold in a very short period of time, or we've seen very high-profile launches that have happened even within cities, whether it's Mumbai or Delhi or Chennai, at very, very attractive prices. They're not necessarily strictly under the definition of affordable housing, but they're what we are now calling as economical housing, what Sharad described as being between 4,000 or 6,000, or let's say in a city like of Mumbai, within 10,000 or 12,000 rupees. Do you think that's an asset class that consumers are going after? Or is it just, again, investors trying to block off these assets? Are these real consumers?
Amit, I think there have been examples on both sides, right? So I have known of cases in Mumbai, there are a couple of hotspots, and I will not name it because there are certain developers who already have an existence there. But there are a couple of areas where you have so-called affordable housing coming, which is more in the range of somewhere between 25 to 35 to 40 lakh rupees of housing. And they've done very, very well initially at the time of launch. But typically these projects tend to be very large. And if the first phase does very well, and if there's a lot of investor, the second phase becomes a problem because investor comes back to the market and he wants to sort of exit at any cost in terms of resale and all this stuff. Now, there's a possibility that you eventually might have houses where nobody's staying and stuff like that. So I think, when an investor comes in, one has to be very careful. How much of investor would you allow in when you're selling a project? Having said that, when you speak to developers, they know that they can't ignore it because that's the one segment which gives them initial sort of momentum and stuff like that. On the other side, when I spoke to the same developer, he has a project in Chennai where most of the people who are bought are actual users and the occupancy is over 90-95%. So I think a lot of this has to do with, one is of course the price, which is what we are discussing. We are doing EWS, we're doing LIG, or we're doing MIG. And I think most of the organized effort largely as of now in urban centers around a little more than somewhere between LIG and MIG, which is where 25-30 lakh rupees of housing is coming. But I think the question still remains whether, and I think it's been discussed, that commercially, whether it's a developer or a housing financial institution or a private equity player, most of them would chase something which is LIG, MIG because there's a commercial angle to it. But the moment you go to anything which is lower than that, the challenge starts coming because a developer has a high cost of land, his funding, he can't go back to NBFCs to get it funded, the cost keeps going up, and thus he has a sort of a very catch-22 situation where his cost is rising, but he's still supposed to be launching something between 10, 15, 20 lakh rupees of range. So I think that is very difficult to find. So we have very few success ratios coming from there. The ones we know of, a couple of them in Gujarat and a couple of them in a couple of other areas, are the ones where actually a mid-sized developer has done very, very well. So the question is, he's done very well, but how do we scale it up and sort of replicate it in 20 other cities or micro locations? And I think that is something which one needs to find out.
So given a scale of development that you're seeing and various development companies, whether they're branded players, local developers, doing MIG, LIG or affordable housing as defined by the government, where do you put your money in? Where do you go after? What are your real partners like? And where's the demand percolating from? Real consumer demand. Where do you think that's coming from?
I think, I spent 17 years with HDFC, so that is one bias which I always have when I sort of talk. we recently sort of put together almost $1 billion fund, and there are large 4 or 5 different platforms being discussed. But like mentioned, there is a commercial motive to it. And because of the HDFC home loan strength, which is very fairly distributed, I think while we are creating platforms with 4 or 5 large developers to make affordable housing in about multiple cities, all 20 top cities can be counted there. We also have a back-end sort of a distribution company on home loans, which can go and access those customers who would need a home loan. So that has to be back there. Plus, we work now with HDFC Realty earlier or Quicker Realty now. We work with selling these products to people where otherwise it's very difficult to reach. So there's an ecosystem which is there. So I think if you see in practice what we are doing, we are still looking at somewhere between LIG and MIG, right? Just a balance between an income which could still be verified in a way, somebody who's still a little more qualified and stuff like that. The challenge still remains, how do we go if we need to sort of go a little sort of under that? So we would still keep it at about top 20 cities and peripheries of most of these large cities.
Sandeep, just to kind of extend his argument on the demand drivers and that some local developers have actually done well. As an HFC, what are your parameters? Are you looking at the developer? You're looking at subvention schemes, you're looking at CLSS, or you're actually doing credit assessment of the end consumer? What are the drivers that is causing home loans to be disbursed in such large quantums under CLSS and under subvention schemes?
Well, the way we look at it as an HFC is that we look at the customer's creditworthiness, his ability and intention to pay, and stable cash flows. That's first and foremost paramount. We also look at the asset, the quality of the asset, whether the developer has the ability to actually complete the project. What happens in many of these cases of affordable housing developers is that they will actually try and build some part, take disbursements which is 50%, 70%, but often the properties don't get completed and infrastructure around those areas never get completed. So people don't move in there. So we've got to be very careful about that particular developer-led model. And most of the NPAs that are coming in affordable housing are actually builder-led. And in areas where builders have not really executed or delivered, or customers have not got properties. Because this customer doesn't have the ability to pay a rent and an EMI at the same time. So our focus as an HFC has been, as I said, the Tier 3, Tier 4 markets where individual customers buy plots of land and build their own houses. That is a harder road. It's much more difficult to execute. Because once you approve a builder, it's like a personal loan in the builder-led market. But when you do self-construction properties, you got to do legal, you got to do technical. It's a lot of hard work. But I think that's where the larger opportunity is if you look beyond the metro markets. And that's a lot more stable. There's a lot more skin in the game for the customer. And stable cash flows, steady customers, same city, same markets for 10 years, 12 years, first generation, second generation. So the India opportunity, I believe, is really expanding beyond the top 6 cities. The top 6 cities, the builder-led, the affordable housing builder-led models will really see some level of stress because there are no great large players in affordable housing. There are nobody who's building 2,000 houses or 3,000. You got to go and find people who are building 20 houses, 30 houses, and somebody who's got a net worth of say 1 crore. You go out and disburse 5 crores into his account is not a great idea.
Got it. So, Mr. Mehta, just to kind of take off from there, what as an HFC, he's mentioned that there is an opportunity on the rural side, and what MHUPA, Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation, also claims that the largest delivery and the largest demand has actually happened to the non-urban locations. That's really where the demand is because they were not fed with quality homes so far. That seems to be really the focus of building houses in the country, not the 5, 6, 7, 8 cities, but really the urban, the non-urban locations, the growing, locations which would potentially become metro locations or urban centers over a period of time, given the urbanization. What are HFCs doing to capture that demand? And what sort of technologies or infrastructure or what sort of skills or tools is required, do you think, to be able to go and meet that demand there?
We as a company are not really believers in rural housing because we think most of the country will gravitate towards urban centers. As time goes on, I mean, even God can't take services like schools, hospitals, you name it, to 500,000 villages. So a lot of villages have to attract, like you're already seeing in Uttarakhand, in UP, in Rajasthan. A lot of small villages have disappeared. So we think that the market is much more in tier 2, 3, 4 cities. Cities with 100,000 plus population are the ones which are growing. If you see in Chhattisgarh, there are two places. One is Durg, which has shown a decadal growth rate in population of 36%. Not because of redefinition, but because of rural-urban migration. And that is where we should concentrate on. From a lending perspective, there are many issues around rural. Valuations are just an estimate, mostly a guess. Liquidity is zero. So you really don't have any collateral comfort in terms of being able to lend. So the truly rural image in your mind, I don't think that is a market for HFCs to exploit. The real market is the tier 2, 3, 4 cities. And that market will be catered to by people who construct their own houses. Because normally when a migrant comes into a new place, to a larger place, he's looking for a kinsman or somebody of the same caste or village or somebody to stay with. And that's where you see this in Pithampur and MP, where people come in from rural hinterlands of MP, but look for a relative or a kinsman to stay with. And those people are now building a lot of houses to rent. So they're adding a room, adding a floor to rent. That is where the true market is. The real large numbers for HFCs like us are coming more from self-construction than for builder-led. Partly builders also have this issue of seeking supernormal returns. So builders are not accustomed to working on a 21% ROE. So affordable is never going to be a big game for them.
Got it. So Sharad, just to kind of extend that argument, because Vikram mentioned that there are platforms being set up, and he mentioned about affordable housing funds being set up. We've heard of a few examples, many of them being global investors, or multilateral organizations. Do you think domestic investors will ever jump into an affordable housing development product, or do you think they will gravitate towards rental housing, like Shobit mentioned, because there's need for either? There's need for capital either for rental housing, or there's need for capital for building affordable housing. Where do you think the market will gravitate to?
I think domestic investors or international investors don't think differently. Capital will chase where the risk-adjusted return is the highest. I would also like to believe that some of the platforms which have been set up as affordable housing are not really focusing on the low cost that we are discussing here. These funds which are, or the platforms, some of them will have a social angle of less than 25 lakhs, but predominantly they are fungible between the mid-income and the affordable is what I believe. Domestic capital would also come when the opportunity starts giving the appropriate return. Commercials are important here. As far as the rental housing is concerned, it's a brilliant idea. I think this is one thing which can help bridge the gap. Unfortunately, I've been battling to work out a maths around it. How does the rental yield in India towards residential will work out to make it attractive? Because there is really a gap from an investor's, local investor's perspective between a debt and an equity. There is a gap to have a debt plus kind of a product, which hopefully REIT can fulfill. Why only a commercial REIT? There could be rental housing REIT or something like that as well. It still needs to be seen how the maths will stack up in a residential yield, unless until somebody does value add services on the residential.
So Shobit, coming back to your own conundrum or poser on capital availability, and now let's talk about availability of capital through multilateral organizations, sovereigns, which we have already seen come in for affordable housing. There has also been a $1 billion ECB creation for affordable housing through NHB, which hasn't been utilized much, of course. But there still seems to have been reasonable amount of capital compared to rental housing, which hasn't seen as much capital. So where is capital gravitating, and what is going to make either of them work? Because without infusion of money, none of them are going to work.
Just to sort of take away the myth, actually the capital is available in plenty, right? Just from people like World Bank, EDB, IFC, and others are very eager to put money. The issue is...
Sorry, in which product?
In affordable housing.
Okay.
The issue is around where is the product and where is the demand, right? So they want to give money to people who will responsibly invest. They want to see corporates go into it. They want to see industrial mindset. They have to see people being able to handle volumes as opposed to niche and boutique, right? And we haven't seen a demonstrated track record, right? We can always say that Tatas can do it. Issue is, have they done it? Do they want to do it is another question, right? So money will come provided we are able to show all of this, right? And really at that level, according to me, whose responsibility is it to provide affordable housing? In my view, government has to play a large role. It's really their responsibility. They have to also chip in somewhere, right? So Andhra Pradesh is a great example where they are now saying land is owned by the government. They're appointing a contractor saying, build me 80,000 units. This is the specification. We are funding it. We will take it and then give it to whoever we like. Now, whether they give it on sale or on rent, that's their wish. Government of Maharashtra is starting to do a pilot in Nagpur. So there are people who can do scale, but there are very limited people. And, we can't start funding small developers and ask them to scale up to meet a 20 million unit shortfall. So I think the problem is you need the right brand. You need the right delivery track record. The capacity building is a big issue. And in my view, money is not the problem here. So it is the returns, overall returns and surety of delivery here.
So are you stating that this entire thing about affordable housing is a bubble or is a myth? And there's actually nothing in reality because there aren't enough credible players who've gotten into or want to get into it?
No, but I'm not saying it's a myth at all. I mean, the demand is real, right? But who's going to service it? So the question is, there is a whole market that is underserved. We all know it. We see it. It's visible to naked eyes. But it needs delivery, right? How are you going to go about delivering? In my view, capital is available. So let's not say capital is a limitation. It is who's going to put up his hand and say, I'm going to start working here, right? So according to me, that race has to be led by corporates because they understand scale and capacity, right? Developers typically, they're not even handling volumes today. I mean, except let's say Magar in Pune or a few other people who've handled scale. Right, to build 6,000 units in one project, one location, you need to have a very sort of assembly line mindset.
Sure.
These developers don't have it yet.
I think Sandeep alluded to lack of skills or technology or competencies or enough, resources to be able to actually develop them. Coming back to you, and before we start wrapping it up, Vikram, we've seen that housing has gone through a cycle. Because of economic or non-economic reasons, largely we've seen the impact of GST, demonetization, RERA have an impact on the sentiment. What do you think is now the driver for people to buy, or are they even going to buy? Or what needs to be done to create enablers for people to buy, let's say not affordable under the definition, but economically priced stock?
How do you differentiate between affordable?
Well, it's what he mentioned as 4,000 to 6,000, so may not be mid-income, let's say, whatever you may call mid-income. So we've seen products which are priced right, maybe, and are in the middle of the market, or what Sharad described as being economically viable for an investor.
I think if you look at the numbers, right, that is what I would like to sort of look at. If you look at the numbers in our brokerage outfit, and if you look at the numbers which I have an access to within the HDFC mortgage numbers, including what we are doing at CLS and the initiatives which we are taking, if you look at all of that, if you look at the rate of growth of most of the NBFCs and HFIs put together, I think the numbers are already telling you a story. They're all showing good profits and they're all doing large numbers. And numbers are growing not only in the average ticket size going up, but also in the overall sort of numbers of houses being funded. So I think as far as housing loan and the purchase related to that is concerned, I think the numbers are telling a story and they're doing pretty well. What is happening is that the decision making is taking a little longer, and it's the investor who sort of moved out of the market. And you can see the impact in places like NCR, which was very heavily led by investors today. So I'm finding it very difficult to comment on, when the investor should come in. But I think if you look at the large mass of people, and there's a large mass where all of us sitting here for us to address, of people who would actually be using it, and there are reasons and numbers which sort of define, how the demand is so large in India today. If you look at that, if you price your product right pricing of the product, right? I think in various forums, people have talked about the location, which should sort of service a person, have basic infrastructure, have basic social infrastructure. If you identify the urban micro sort of centers where you want to be, if you look at all those projects which are coming in these areas, the price could be 4,000 or 6,000. There is always a demand. So I think if you take care of those basic sort of factors, there is a customer at every price point. And even now you see successes happening in projects, like you mentioned, where there are huge sales happening, only because, you be a little more prudent in terms of how you want to price it. Does not necessarily mean that your price per square feet will go down, but I think they're right sizing the flats. They're cutting down on certain amenities which had become a fashion statement until about 5 years back, and they're making houses which are more functional and usable, including trying to figure out how to give you a 2-bedroom house in about 1,100 square feet or something.
Got it. So, Puneet, what needs to be done, just as a sort of important question for somebody from the outside or global investors looking, what does Indian developers or the government need to do to make Indian housing more attractive from an investor's perspective and a consumer's perspective? What are the continuing existing bottlenecks that you would have as a wish list would go away?
See, now, if suppose you look at the investors, there could be two kind of capital. One is equity capital and one is a debt capital. As I said, what investors basically looking at is that, that there's a certain protection of capital, which essentially comes in from the fact that there is a certain track record of a developer. So generally what has happened is the past, all the affordable housing which has come are so much on the outskirts of the city that the social infrastructure is not there. So one is, I think, in collaboration with the municipal government, the municipal limits could potentially be increased. So, for example, let's say a Karnal or a Satara, 3 or 4 kilometers, the municipal limit kind of ends. So one way is to basically increase those municipal limits. The second is from a developer perspective. I think needs to be a mindset change. That if suppose they're taking equity or debt, there's a different mindset which is required. And once that mindset kind of starts changing, I think there's the problem has a solution.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was a wonderful panel. Thank you for being here.